Hey there! Today, I'm happy to introduce to you our latest addition to the Qubit lineup, Stardust. Stardust is a stereo tape looper of cosmic proportions. It can capture and play back audio, dial in a seamless loop, and manipulate recorded sound in all sorts of exciting ways. Don't worry, we'll cover each way you can create and process audio with Stardust shortly, so hold on tight as we launch into uncharted territories. Just above center on the front panel is an illuminated portion of Stardust's artwork. This acts as a visual indicator for a multitude of controls and functions on Stardust, much like Mojave, Nautilus, and Aurora. I'll refer to it as the Galaxy LEDs throughout the overview. Okay, let's record some sound. Before we hit the big red button, let's make sure our levels are where they need to be for our recording. We'll want to take a look at these two knobs first. On the left we have in level, which controls the gain level for the incoming audio signal. The incoming audio is silent when the knob is fully to the left, and at full volume when the knob is at the center position. Turning the knob to the right from center introduces a warm tape saturation to the incoming signal, which gets more extreme as the knob reaches the far right position. The knob on the right here is mix, which blends between the dry and wet signal. Dry is to the left, and wet is to the right. The default mix curve is constant power, but you can change the curve between a few different options using Narwhal, our settings web app. Let's place both knobs to their center positions for our initial recordings. Also, I wanted to point out that Stardust matches the recommended initial knob positions found in our manual right now. This will ensure that no loop manipulations or effects are active after we make our first recording. This should help us avoid any potential confusion while we cover the next few controls. Okay, let's make our first recording. The record button is here. Pressing the record button will begin our first recording. The recording will stop when the button is pressed again. Easy. Now, I know my recording is far from perfect timing-wise. We'll talk about a couple of ways we can tighten up our recordings in a bit. For now, I'm going to turn mix to full wet so that we can hear our new recording. By default, our new recording will start looping once it's complete. We can toggle the playback state with the play pause button here. Pressing the button while the loop is playing will pause the loop at its current position. Pressing the button again will continue playing the loop, with the tape head picking up where it left off. If you want to jump the tape head back to the beginning of the loop, you can press the reset button here. The tape head will instantly jump back to the beginning of the loop. Also, the reset LED will blink blue each time Stardust hits the loop point. The last of our illuminated buttons below is reverse. I bet you can guess what this does. Pressing the button will change the playback direction from forward to reverse. Press it again to return to a forward playback direction. Let's record another layer onto our loop. I'm going to turn mix back down to hear what I'm working with. Let's record. Again, not the tightest recording ever, but now we have 2 layers of sound in our loop. If by chance you flubbed a recording, or it wasn't quite what you were looking for, don't worry. Stardust has a failsafe for me and you. The undo button will erase the last recording you've made to your loop, allowing you to retry your last recording. If you're wondering if this is permanent, don't worry, it's not. At least not yet. If I press the undo button again, it'll bring back the audio that I had undone. The undone audio will only be permanently gone when I record new audio in its place. If you want to start fresh with a new buffer, you can delete all recordings with the erase button. And if you erase your recording and immediately regret it, again, don't worry. You can press undo after an erase to bring your loop back. Only after you create a new audio buffer with record will the erased loop be permanently gone. So up until now, we've been listening to the entire recording we've made as our loop. But what if we want to loop just a portion of it? That's where these 2 knobs come in. Start adjusts the beginning position for the loop within the recorded buffer. The position will be at the very beginning of the buffer when turned fully to the left, and at the very end of the buffer when fully to the right. Over here on the dark side of the loop is the size control. Turning this knob adjusts the loop end position relative to the start position. The loop size can range from the full audio buffer when fully to the right, down to 5 milliseconds when fully to the left. The loop size is a fixed amount. What does this mean? Well, if you move the start position to a point where the loop size is longer than the buffer endpoint, it will jump to the beginning of the buffer and continue playing. The big encoder between our erase and undo buttons is the Varispeed control. Turning this control will change the loop playback speed. Unlike Nebulae, which has independent speed and pitch controls, Stardust is a tape-inspired Varispeed looper. What does this mean? If the playback speeds up, the audio pitch increases. If it slows down, the pitch decreases. The Varispeed range in the default mode smoothly transitions between pitches, with LED indications for when the loop is on an octave. Varispeed smoothly transitions from 1/16 the original playback speed to 8 times the original playback speed. In terms of pitch, the range is 4 octaves below the root pitch to 3 octaves above. To return to original pitch, or 1 times playback speed, we can press the encoder button. Varispeed is connected to a 1 volt per octave input, which is perfect for melodically sequencing Stardust's loop. The range for the 1 volt per octave input is -3 volts to +5 volts, and this is an offset to the Varispeed range. This means you can push the playback speed boundaries even further with this input. If you are looking for a more natural feel to adjusting playback speed, look no further, the Inertia knob is your friend. Turning up this knob will increase the amount of tape lag when changing playback speed. Perfect for making tape stop and start effects with the play-pause button, or adding momentum to the Varispeed control. There is no lag when the knob is fully to the left, and a max tape lag of 2 seconds when fully to the right. Here's a neat tip for Inertia that I wanted to share, though we'll also cover it in our secondary functions video when it's released. Holding the shift button and turning the Inertia knob will adjust the inertial slope. Without getting too into it, it basically allows you to dial in the tape lag ratio between playback speed increases and decreases. This means you can have only decreasing speed changes lag, while increasing speeds are instant, and vice versa. Now that we know how to dial in our loop, let's see how we can manipulate it further. In the outer reaches of our Stardust galaxy is the skip knob. There are 9 zones across the knob. As the knob or CV enters a new zone, new skip transformations are introduced. You'll know you're in a new zone when the left galaxy LEDs change colors. Skip can cause the loop to randomly reverse, pitch up or down octaves, have a different start point, a different stereo image, and so much more. On the other side of our galaxy is Slice. Turning this knob increases the amount of splice points evenly distributed throughout the loop, and also increases the amount of splice repeats possible. The range is exponential, meaning it will jump from 1 slice to 2 to 4 to 8 to 16, and so on, with the max amount of splice points up in the thousands depending on Stardust's loop length. When Slice is active, Skip will begin referencing the splice points along the loop point for its manipulations. At the beginning of a new splice amount, the right galaxy LEDs will change color. This means that Slice will not repeat splice points, but the rest of Stardust will still reference the amount of splice points, mainly skip and nova. Now that we know how to record a buffer, make a loop, and manipulate that loop, we can check out Stardust's end-of-chain processors. Currently, there are 4 DSP effects that can be cycled through with the Effect Mode button. Pressing the button will cycle our asteroid LED color, indicating that a new effect is chosen. You can control the chosen effect with the flutter and hiss knobs. I'm going to cycle through each effect mode, then share what each control does for their respective effect. Also, each effect is off when the flutter or hiss knob is fully to the left, and at their maximum values when fully to the right. Stardust's first effect is tape emulation, indicated by a blue asteroid. This effect is where flutter and hiss get their names from. Flutter controls the amount of wow and flutter applied to the loop. As flutter is increased, more dramatic pitch drifts and fluctuations are introduced, similar to what you might find with an old tape player. Hiss controls the amount of tape hiss applied to the loop. It can range from subtle hiss to all-encompassing pops, crackles, and noise. The next effect is digital audio artifacts, indicated by a green asteroid. This effect plays with the digital fidelity of the loop. Flutter now adjusts the sample rate of the loop from full resolution to 500 Hz. And hiss controls the amount of bit crushing applied to the loop, from full bit depth to 2 bits. Our third effect is reverberation, which is a lush reverb algorithm for spacing out your loops and is indicated by a gold asteroid LED. In this mode, the flutter knob controls the dry-wet mix for the reverb, while the hiss controls the reverb decay. The range goes from quick slapback reverbs to ethereal 20-second long trails. And lastly, the purple asteroid LED indicates the high-pass, low-pass filter effect. The flutter knob controls the high-pass filter, which ranges from no filtering to 12 kHz when fully to the right. The hiss knob controls the low-pass filter, which ranges from no filtering to 150 Hz when fully to the right. While we're up here, there are 2 more buttons and jacks at the top of Stardust that I want to cover. The first being Freeze. It wouldn't be a qubit module without it. Freeze, when activated, locks the tape head position of the looper and repeats 1% of the loop length, giving you that classic qubit freeze effect. Pressing the Freeze button will activate Freeze, and pressing it again will deactivate it. And here, top and center on Stardust, is the Loop Mode button. This button changes the way Stardust's recording behavior operates. We've been using the Sound on Sound mode so far in this video, which records new audio on top of the existing buffer and bakes it into the loop. The next loop mode is Replace, indicated by a green loop LED. In this mode, newly recorded audio will take the old audio in its place, delete it, and then replace it. This mode is great for introducing new variations of your audio without stacking it on top of previous recordings, or injecting portions of entirely different audio within your loop. Stardust also has a Frippertronics mode, inspired by the famed tape recording technique pioneered by Robert Fripp. Frippertronics mode is indicated by a gold loop LED. While in this mode, Stardust will diminish the amplitude of the loop before each new recording pass. Newer recordings will be louder, while older recordings slowly disappear into the ether. We recommend leaving record on after establishing your loop, and it's also important to note that the undo button does not work in this mode due to the nature of the recording behavior. Lastly, we have Resample mode, which is indicated by a purple LED. In this mode, Stardust instead reads the loop as the audio input and records any and all manipulations made into a new buffer. Let's chop up our loop with skip and slice, then resample it. You'll notice after we resampled our loop that the splice jumping got a bit more intense. We're having a sort of inception moment here since Stardust is now splicing our previously spliced loops. I'll turn down skip and slice so we can hear our new recording as is. To the right of loop mode is clock. The clock input lets Stardust sync its controls to an external clock. Remember how I said earlier we'd learn how to tighten up our recordings? Well, this is it. Let's patch a clock into Stardust. Now we will need to turn on clock mode by holding the shift button, then pressing the reverse button. Clock mode is on if the reverse LED is green while holding shift. Not only will controls like skip and slice be clock synced, but now the record button is synced as well. When pressed, the record button will queue up, then begin recording at the next clock pulse. The same thing will happen when stopping the recording. Pretty neat. And last, but certainly not least, we have the Nova output, a unique output based on conditions set within Stardust. In its default setting, Nova outputs a gate signal every time the tape head passes the loop point or any splice point. This signal is great for triggering other patch points in your system in time with your loop. There are other signal outputs available for Nova and are accessible via Narwhal. Check the link in the description below to learn more. In fact, as we've touched on a couple of times in this video, Stardust has even more functionality under the hood for dialing in a bespoke looper device. Keep an eye out for our next video where we will cover the secondary functions on Stardust and its configurable settings found on Narwhal, our settings web app. If you can't wait for the next video, I don't blame you. Head to our site where you can find more information on Stardust, listen to some more audio demos, and read the complete manual. And that is Stardust. It's been a pleasure bringing this module down to Earth, and we can't wait to hear the music and sounds the community makes with our Cosmic Tape Looper. If you want to see more Stardust in your future, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also, we have a Discord server where you can chat with the Qubit community about Stardust, Qubit, and all things modular. The link is down below. Until next time, happy patching.